Um, I was in high school when I bought this jersey. I believe it was my senior year of high school. No, yeah, it was senior year of high school. Um, I bought this one. Quite proud of myself. I saved up allowance money and money from little jobs I had here and there to save up the $50 required to buy this jersey. It was the second jersey I ever bought. The first one being Vancouver. Of course, that Vancouver one's pretty ratty. Got that one here. I'm going somewhere with this. So there's the ratty looking Canucks that I've got. So, you know, tonight's one of those nights where it's easy for people to hate on me. But there's no bandwagon here. And, tonight I'm torn. We'll get to why I'm torn. But I'm definitely torn. Great series by the Columbus Blue Jackets. Now there's a lot of uncertainty in terms of who's coming back, who's going to sign long-term extensions, who's going to stick around. Like, this is when all the second guessing comes out. And even with John Davidson, there's been some talk about maybe he would go to the Rangers. So there's a lot of different pieces in motion here potentially. And so for Columbus, I feel bad. I genuinely do. And I know there's people who are going to say, Shannon doesn't feel bad for Columbus. I do, actually. It was an electric crowd to start, and they call it the fifth line, and for good reason. And then I had to put up there, stop calling it the perfection line. It's driving me insane. It is their top line. I can understand calling it the big line, but don't call it perfection, because that just drives me nuts. Both goalies looked really sharp early, and I right away thought, okay, this is going to be a tight, close game, and it really, really was. Hannakainen was good early on. This was his first playoff game, and he got an early chance. And it's notable that John Tortorella kept messing with his lineup. Gavrikov looked pretty good. I'm sorry if I'm butchering the way that's pronounced, but that's the way it was pronounced by Sportsnet's Jim Houston tonight. So, this was his second game, and he really didn't look like a guy who was in his first couple of playoff games when he played. And then Boston 0 for 1 on the power play. They get the first penalty, or first power play, I should say. And that's the only power play they have all night. So I know there are people who are going to say, hey, those referees sure helped Boston. Not tonight. Columbus went 0 for 4. Columbus had a lot of power play chances over the last 3 games, but they could not score on them. Now, there was a goal that was scored that got wiped out by a goalie interference call. That's the right call. 100% that's the right call. Goaltender's in his crease, got kind of pulled out. Either way, you can't let that one go. You can't let that one be called a goal at all. So perfectly fine with that one getting wiped out. And there were lots of close calls for Columbus. And one of the things that really emerges from this game is the amount of posts they hit, the amount of wide open chances they just missed on, and just Rask with robbery. And not only that, but Columbus threw a ton of hits tonight. Lots and lots of hits. It's scoreless after one. The shots were 12-10 for Boston. But Columbus was definitely winning on the physical side of things. They had more than 20 hits just in the first period alone. So second period, the Jackets looked pretty good to start the second period of that game. They did. They looked pretty darn good. And then there's a shorthanded breakaway for Boston. There was actually 2 players on the breakaway, and there was a miscommunication between them. Clearly, they hadn't thought this out. And then once they get the shot, Bobrovsky makes a fantastic save, shorthanded to keep it as a scoreless game. And then Kukan hits the crossbar. Everything that hit the crossbar went up. If it's crossbar down, if you do the whole bar down thing, those are going in. Barring up, they're out of play. And you're looking at the lights and wondering what's going on. And I thought the Bruins were undisciplined, really. Marchand with a slash, and I thought Boston was playing very undisciplined in this game. Then Krejci scores from DeBrusk and Clifton. So Clifton gets on the board, DeBrusk with an assist, and Krejci with the goal. So 1-0 Boston. And then I had to put in here, Columbus hits another post. They're actually in control. This was very much a Columbus period. They killed it in this period, just couldn't get a goal. They could not get a goal when they needed it. And I put tense, and I jinxed it here, tense but clean game. I was surprised at just how many hits were getting thrown and that there wasn't any kind of retaliatory. We will be talking about the hit by McAvoy over the next day or so. And I had to put in there bad hit, not a bat hit. He's not Batman. I'll just put a D in there instead. So bad hit by McAvoy, head hit, and then I put 2 minutes with a question mark. Now, I get it. I get how, head hits aren't necessarily game misconducts unless you prove intent to injure. Here's how I see it, and I know there are Bruins fans who say, well, Anderson had his head down. The angle of the hit, McAvoy's watching what he's doing coming across. He hits the head with his forearm or his elbow or his shoulder. So in here, and from different angles it looks a little different, but you can see that he has the angle where he can move away from it being a head hit, and he doesn't. So this to me is absolutely a hit by McAvoy that could have been avoided. It could have been delivered clean, and it is a clear hit to the head. And just from the ones that have been suspended this year and from the way the NHL rules, whether they are or aren't suspensions, because McAvoy could have changed the angle of the hit. We've had this argument many times, and people are going to argue this in the discussion below this video. But because he could have changed the angle on the hit, I really think they're going to look at it. And I think he should be suspended, and at the very least, I thought he should have been out of the game. I thought that could have been ruled as intent to injure, and it should have been a 5-minute major. Instead, it's a 2-minute penalty, and the Bruins kill it. But it felt like that distracted the Blue Jackets for that period, and it felt like things could get ugly in the third period, so I got nervous. Now, the good news for Charlie McAvoy is this. Anderson is fine. So Anderson left the game after the hit, but he came back into the game and he played the third period. So when they're looking at suspension, they do look at whether or not there's an injury on the play. So for McAvoy, that could work to his benefit that there wasn't any actual injury that took Anderson out for the rest of the game. So Anderson comes back to... Sorry, I had to deal with a cat issue. Anderson starts the third period, and like I said, good news for McAvoy on that front, I would think. I still think he gets a call from Department of Player Safety based on the angle of the hit and just how it looked. And because the principal point of contact is the head. Now, Nordstrom slashing, and I put up here Bruins playing with fire. So the Bruins in the box again. This is a Columbus power play that was lethal against Tampa. But luckily, thankfully, Tuukka Rask is online. He is fantastic. He is absolutely dialed in. And the Bruins penalty killing was really solid. So along the way, there's another post by Columbus. Another crossbar. Because that's the way this game went. And then I put up here Bruins playing the trap. So the Bruins started just putting in one attacker and just having 4 guys across the neutral zone. Like, okay, we're up 1-0, we're going to kill it. And I thought it was worth putting up their Bruins playing the trap because this can go one of two ways. The trap can be used against you. You can end up losing a game because you're playing the trap, or you can get turnovers through playing the trap and it can lead to more goals. Johansson scores from Coyle and Heinen. So the score is 2-0 for Boston at that point. And I breathe a bit of a sigh of relief, and not long after that, Backus with the one to salt it away from Krug and Krejci. And I'm torn. Because again, as a Bruins fan, dates back to the 80s, I am really excited to see the Bruins in the next round for the first time in 6 years. But it is a shame the way this goes down, that it goes down in Columbus, and I feel bad for the fans. Even the dude in the curlers. The score did not indicate the play either. I had to put that up here. Columbus was dominant for the last 2 periods when it comes to scoring chances. Boston started to counterattack. They got some good chances. Of the 3 goals, I think there's probably one that Bobrovsky had a good chance at. But when your team doesn't score, right? And then I thought the Bruins should have played McAvoy less. I was worried because they were showing like Columbus taking a healthy run at him in certain plays. And you can understand why Columbus Blue Jacket players would be PO'd that he was still on the ice. PO'd that he was still in the game. I get that. So I was in favor of let's just keep McAvoy out of the game a bit and just let him sit on the bench and not put him in a situation where something could happen, right? Because they knew their season was over. But nothing happened. Rask ends up with his 6th career playoff shutout. Tuukka Rask, must have watched the video after Game 3 where I talked about, like, the preview for Game 4, where I talked about how he needed to be better and steal a series. And then he steals the series, so you're welcome, Boston fans. Tuukka Rask with 39 saves. 39 saves. Bobrovsky saves 26 out of 29. Again, I thought he played well, but he got outplayed by Tuukka. That's what we needed for Boston. And now in the next round, it'll be Boston and Carolina. I am stoked for that series. That series is going to be amazing. That being said, I also want to mention the shots were 12-12 in the second, which was different than the second, where the shots were 17-5. The third period, the shots were even, but I thought a lot of that was towards the end of the game, where Boston had that 3-0 lead, and they were able to get some more shots out of it. But there was a nice moment in the handshake line where Josh Anderson and Charlie McAvoy came together, and you could see that McAvoy apologized to him and made it clear, I didn't mean to do that. That wasn't my intention. And Anderson seemed to have an attitude of, it's fine, I'm all right, kind of thing, and it's okay. This does not affect what the NHL decides to do or not do, but it does kind of show McAvoy to be a decent guy. So I realize that there's going to be a lot of angry fans and a lot of people talking about the McAvoy thing. And honestly, should it have been a 5? You could make the argument it could have been. But Columbus wasn't able to score on the 4 power plays that they had. So, there's no guarantee that with the extra 3 minutes on a power play they would have scored. They didn't score in the first 2. So Boston seemed to want it tonight. The experience factor seemed to come in a lot. There was no panic, and I feel bad for John Tortorella too. Tortorella guaranteed a win here, guaranteed they were going back to Boston for Game 7. So again, I'm happy as a Bruins fan that I'm not going to deal with another Game 7. I hate Game 7s as a fan because they just suck. But at the same time, there's going to be a bit of a cloud over this. Just remember, Tuukka Rask wasn't allowing anything tonight. It just wasn't happening. And that's a big part of the reason why Columbus is done. So Columbus, when they clean out their lockers, there's going to be a lot of question marks as to who is going to come back next season. It's going to be a pretty intense offseason for them. But there you go. We've got a matchup that's set in the East. Everybody will be cheering for Carolina except for me. I am well aware of that. I will be the lone Bruins fan in any room that I'm in over the next 2 weeks at any point that there's a game on between Boston and Carolina. And I accept that, and that's okay, and it's not the first time it's happened. There you go. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.